Welcome to Out from the Horrorbox. I'm your prophetic host, Dom, and this is the first podcast of 2024. I've been gone for a few weeks to kind of sort out a few kinks with the podcast, and hopefully this will get everything in order. Since this is a new year, I want to get to some of the films I haven't been able to review yet. The added bonus is that January doesn't really have any new films, so I thought I'd start with a film that garnered an 81% on Rotten Tomatoes and won the Saturn Award for Best Horror Film. The 2022 supernatural horror film, directed by Scott Derrickson, The Black Phone. 20th Century Ghosts author Joe Hill's first published book-length work is a collection of short stories that was first published in October 2005 in the UK and then was released October 2007 here in the US. Hill's short story collection includes the short story The Black Phone, from which Derrickson and his frequent collaborator, C. Robert Cargill, decided to adapt into a feature film. Derrickson was working on the sequel to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, while Cargill was developing the script and promised to postpone the project until Derrickson, who had committed to Marvel Studios, when he became available, then he would come on to direct. Then, January 2020, due to creative differences, Derrickson came on board to helm The Black Phone after departing from the Doctor Strange sequel, which led to legendary horror director Sam Raimi taking over the direction of the sequel. The Black Phone premiered at Fantastic Fest on September 2021 and was theatrically released by Universal Pictures on June 24th, 2022. It was a box office hit and grossed $161 million worldwide. Now that we have a basis for the film about kidnapping, psychic dreams, and masks, let's answer that call.
I'll be home in the morning.
Where are you going?
I'm staying over at Susie's tonight.
What's new? The flyer.
The papers call him the grabber.
I wish you wouldn't call him that.
You don't actually believe that story, do you? Because he can't hear you, and he doesn't really take kids that safe.
Oh, you goof. Well, isn't that just peachy keen?
You need some help?
You see that?
Yeah.
Would you hand me my hat? Yes, sir. I am a part-time magician.
Are those black balloons in there?
Would you like to see a magic trick?
I have an announcement to make. One of our students, Finney Blake, was abducted.
What if I could help the police find Finney?
Doesn't work. Not since I was a kid.
I'll scream. I'll scratch your face.
This face?
Daddy, I had a dream about it.
What happened in your dream?
He was taken.
By a man with black balloons?
Yes.
We never released those details.
Hello?
Don't hang up.
Who are you?
You know all our names?
You're getting out of here.
Please let the dreams be real.
See the wall in front of you? I tore a long cable loose from down there.
There's a combination lock on the inside of the storm door.
What's the combination?
I carved it in the wall.
Hang up the phone! Now!
The tree, the door, the gate. I'd never seen it before except in my dreams.
You don't have much time.
You're gonna use a weapon. You raise the phone, step back, and swing.
Look what you made me do.
Please hurry.
You remember what I told you?
There's someday I have to stand up for myself.
Someday is today, Finn.
In 1978, siblings Finney and Gwen Blake, who are played by Mason Thames and Madeline McGraw, live in North Denver with their abusive, alcoholic father, played by Jeremy Davies. As a serial child abductor and murderer, known only as the Grabber, haunts the streets of the suburbs. Finney is frequently bullied and harassed at school, and he has a friendship with a classmate, Robin, who fends off those bullies. Robin is played by Miguel Mora. Bruce, played by Tristan Provong, is a boy that Finney knew and gets abducted by the Grabber. Gwen dreams of Bruce's kidnapping and talks to detectives Wright and Miller, who are played by E. Roger Mitchell and Troy Rudisill, respectively, at school, and they believe that she has some inside knowledge. She refuses to help, but is assaulted with a belt by her father for speaking with the detectives. We learn that Gwen has psychic dreams, much like her late mother. Shortly after this, Robin has been abducted by the Grabber. A few days later, Finney encounters a man needing help. This turns out to be the Grabber, played by Ethan Hawke, who is able to kidnap Finney. When he awakens, he is in a soundproofed basement. On one of the walls, there's a disconnected black rotary dial phone. Later, Finney hears the phone ring and answers it. Bruce's ghost tells Finney about a floor tile he can remove to dig a tunnel to escape. The search for Finney goes unsuccessful. The Grabber brings Finney food and leaves the basement door unlocked. Finney is tempted to sneak out, but just as he is about to, Billy, another victim of the Grabber, calls on the black phone and explains the game that the Grabber plays. Billy is played by Jacob Moran. The Grabber is waiting at the top of the staircase to the basement to cruelly beat and punish Finney if he tries leaving the basement. Billy instructs him to use a cord to get out via the basement window. His attempts break the bars on the window grate, preventing him from climbing back up. Gwen dreams of Billy being abducted and confides in her father. Wright and Miller speak to an eccentric man named Max Shaw, played by James Ransone, who is staying in the area with his brother. It is revealed Finney is in the clueless Max basement, and the Grabber is his brother, Albert Shaw. Finney speaks to another victim, Griffin, on the phone. Griffin, who is played by Banks Rapita, gives Finney the lock combination and informs him that the Grabber is asleep upstairs. Finney sneaks upstairs and unlocks the front door, but the Grabber's dog alerts him of the escape. Finney is quickly recaptured and put back in the basement. Finney hears from another victim, a delinquent named Vance, who is one of Finney's bullies. Vance is played by Brady Hepner. Following Vance's instructions, Finney breaks a hole in one of the walls and enters the back of the freezer in the adjacent storage room, but the freezer door is locked tight. Finney hits his breaking point and begins to cry. The phone rings one more time. Robin comforts Finney and encourages him to stand up and fight for himself. He teaches Finney to punch and to pack dirt inside the phone receiver to use as a weapon. Gwen has a vision of the Grabber's house. She contacts Wright and Miller and explains where she believes the house is that the Grabber has been taking his victims. Max realizes Finney is being held in the house and rushes to the basement to free him, only for his brother to kill him with an axe. The police rush to the house that Gwen found. In the basement, they find the buried bodies of the victims. Deciding it is time to end the game with Finney, the Grabber attacks him with the axe. Using the byproducts from his previous failed escape attempts, Finney immobilizes the Grabber. As the ghosts of his victims taunt the Grabber over the phone, Finney snaps his neck with a phone cord. Distracting the dog with meat from the freezer, Finney escapes the house, which turns out to be across the street from the burial site. He reunites with Gwen. The siblings' father arrives and tearfully begs forgiveness for his earlier treatment of them. Back at school, a confident Finney sits next to his crush in class and says to her she can call him Finn. We move on to some trivia about the film The Black Phone and learn something about the behind the scenes, the production, and the actors. In the film, the paperboy is a reference to Johnny Gosch. He was a paperboy from Iowa who was en route with his dog Gretchen and disappeared. His dog was found later, but Johnny's disappearance remains unsolved to this day. And honestly, I'd love to make an episode about that whole disappearance and then what it led to, and like the discovery of like there might possibly be this child abduction ring within the government, and where it's like these kind of like conspiracy theories meet conspiracy truth, and like how there was this like trial and legal battle, but not for this, but from what came from that. And like it's from like Johnny Gosch. I think we also got like on milk cartons when they would put like the picture of like the missing kids. There's a lot too, like his mom said years later that she saw him when he was older. He came to his door with a man, and she was able to talk to him for a little bit, and then they had to leave. But like we're not sure if that was like true, or she just years of like wanting something, made it up. It's a really sad story when you hear it and you read into it and you get into it. A lot of those obviously are very sad stories when like children are abducted. But this one, there's a documentary called "Who Took Johnny," and that's a really good one as well. And yeah, if you haven't look into Johnny Gosch, it's a very, very wild and crazy. Like it gets you into a lot of different things. I'll just say that. Like you get from there to like a lot of things in the government, and it's like whoa. But yeah, really definitely check that out. And that case I think has inspired a lot of like films and media where like children go missing. The grabber is a clown in the short story, but Hill suggested that in a post-it world, they really couldn't keep that and should instead switch him to a magician. And early drafts of the script also described the mask as like a leather one with a smile or a frown, but Derrickson knew they'd be the centerpiece of the film's marketing, so he spent a lot of time designing it. And honestly, I'm so glad he did, because it really makes a lot of the marketing for it like that much more creepier, especially when you get into like the mask with like the horns, like the devil, and then just that weird like grin that he gives himself with it. It just works overall for that character to be more menacing. And there's a film, I forgot what it's called, London After Midnight, and it's a lost film. It was shot by Todd Browning, I believe, and it's an old movie with Lon Chaney in it. And there's like the main antagonist villain of the film. You can clearly see like the top hat and like just that weird smile, that because Lon Chaney is a master of 1,000 faces. He was able to really contort his face in a lot of menacing ways, and this just, you could tell that like, oh yeah, that's kind of what inspired like the look of the grabber. And I'm glad, like I love when they take that. It's like the thing with like the Joker, right, where it was from The Man Who Laughs. I believe The Man Who Smiles. Well, I forgot the name of the film, but that's really where they got that look of this man, of like this grinning person who has like this pale face and just smiling. Like that's the look of the Joker. That's how the Joker is supposed to look. And you can tell that that's probably where Derrickson got like this kind of idea for like the top hat and everything. And I think it works perfectly for this film. Like it works amazingly well. I like that idea of like this magician with a top hat and that weird grinning smile mask works perfectly, especially with like the sunglasses he's wearing too. It all works really well. And Ethan Hawke, he plays that character so well, and it, like, I'll get into it a little bit further, but he does a good job. Madeline McGraw was originally unable to appear in the film as the original shooting schedule clashed with her show Secrets of Sulphur Springs. Scott Derrickson was so impressed, though, with her that he pushed back the production date just to accommodate her casting, and I am so glad he did, because I don't want to get ahead of myself because I want to talk about this in my final thoughts, but she is the standout performance. Like, Ethan Hawke, he's a great actor, and he does stand out too, but I think she gives it all that she can, and I don't even think that's all she can. I honestly would love to see what she does later, because she every scene she's in, she makes the scene. Like, she's the reason why you're still watching. I mean, not because the story is bad or anything, but because, like, you just want to see more of her, and that's why I would hope in the sequel, like, we get to see her again, and I know she's going to be in it, so that's what I'm so glad with. I'm so glad that she's going to be in it again. But yeah, I'm so glad he saw what everyone else sees in the film. Like, she is an amazing actress, and see, when people like comment on like, oh, this is who you just cast Timothée Chalamet again just to play this role of this character, or you just cast this person again just because, oh, they're the it person of the week or of the year, and instead you like this, like, they could have totally got like someone well known to just plug into the role, and that's it. But I'm so glad that he waited, because he saw and wasn't so impressed with her that he, like, I'm going to push everything back because we need her, because she is great. That's what we need to do more of, and I think that's what more directors, casting directors, producers, like productions overall need to do more of. That, like, when somebody's right for the role, they're right. You need to move things around to get them. They rewrote the ending a couple of times, searching for the best way to close things out. And an earlier idea saw the return of the ghost kids as Finney kills the grabber. Derrickson decided having him hear them on the phone was way better. And honestly, I do agree with that, because having the kids come back, honestly, would have just reminded me of, like, Sinister. And, I love Scott Derrickson. I think Doctor Strange was great. I think this movie is great. I think his short, we're going to talk about it a little bit later, was pretty good. And I think overall he's a pretty good director. My only issue is with Sinister, because that movie is so good until the end, and then the ending just kind of is like, that's kind of stupid. That's kind of dumb. Like, you set this big bad up, and then he doesn't even do anything. He just comes out of a movie and then takes the kid. All right. That's why I'm not going to review Sinister on here. I just spoiled it for everybody. It's a great movie. It is, like I said, it is a good movie until the ending, and that ruins it for me. I was so mad coming out of that movie that I wrote a whole, like, script for a movie, because I was like, this is not how you end a film, because that's dumb. I don't understand why you would do it that way. But everything else in that film works really well. I think that, like, seeing the home footage and all that works really well, and you can see, like, he uses that look for, like, the dreams and stuff, and it looks amazing. But I'm glad, like, he kept getting at it, going at it to, like, try and find that ending that would work really well. And I think this ending works really well. Derrickson also said that the axe to the head was a very difficult special effect to do. He added that he looked through the history of cinema, the whole history of cinema, and there just aren't any real shots of an axe going into a head on camera. They pull it off, though, here with a combination of both practical and visual effects, and it honestly works really well. Like, I didn't even think about that, like, and think to, like, look that up. was like, yeah, when you say that, like, there has to be movies where they do axe to the head, but the way I'm thinking it is like, no, wait, that, because I was thinking of like Friday the 13th, and I think part 4, when he slices into Jason's head, Corey Feldman at the end, but that's with a machete, and the effect that they do is with like a prosthetic head, not a real, like they don't do it like with, like here obviously, like it is visual effects also, but I think that is all like visual and practical and stuff. No, sorry, not visual. Like it was all practical effect in Friday the 13th. Here, yeah, they always obviously had to add in like some kind of like CG to make it work. But yeah, that was made me really think about that. Like I didn't put 2 and 2 together that I don't think we've ever seen that on film. Of like maybe there are some films, and maybe, I mean, he says he looked through the whole history of cinema, but I doubt it. There's so many movies out there. Maybe there's something where someone did pull it off, like a head into an axe into someone's head on camera. Maybe he just didn't see it. I feel like there has to be, but maybe I'm wrong. You know, I don't know all of the whole cinema, so maybe he's right. Maybe he looked and he just couldn't find anything. But honestly, I think it comes off pretty good. It was Ethan Hawke's idea to have the grabber react with panic when Finney removes his mask, and he also suggests he slide fully into the hole after he's killed. Going back to the idea of the grabber reacting with panic when he takes his mask, that's very much like what you would see with someone who's obsessed with and has this like kind of other personality when they're doing the evil things, to kind of disassociate with it, because that's really what he's kind of doing, right? I mean, we know that he's also like that when he's Albert Shaw, but when he's the grabber, obviously he, like, that's what he's trying to do, is he puts on these masks to kind of disassociate himself with what he's doing. It's like, oh no, this person, the grabber, is the one who's doing it. I'm not doing it. Not me, not Albert Shaw. It's the grabber who's doing it. It's this person who is the evil part of me, and that's why I have to be under this mask. I mean, maybe I'm overanalyzing a psychopath, but and maybe it could just be he just doesn't want him to see his face. But to me, that's what I would see as the reason why he like panics like that. And good on Ethan Hawke. Like, I feel like that's kind of like what. I mean, obviously not every serial killer wears some, but like certain people when they kill, like they like to do that, where it's like, where that happens, where they disassociate with like what they're doing with why they're doing it. Like, oh, I'm doing it because I'm helping this, like the police by getting these people off of the street, or I'm helping the community because, oh, there shouldn't be these people out there, and I'm just getting rid of them for the community. And it's this whole like, you're just trying to justify your actions, and I think that's what wearing that mask helps him to do. And we've seen it with other like slashers where they wear masks to kind of hide who they are, and it's more to kind of we can project onto them. Like, we see the grabber's mask and we know he has evil intent, right? We see Michael Myers' blank face, and you can project any kind of emotion you want on there to like Ghostface, right? We know that this is like a haunting look, and you know, like death is stalking around. You know, that's why we have these masks to hide ourselves. And I think it works really well. It's like, it's a figurative mask. It's a literal mask, that is meant to be figurative also. In October 2023, Derrickson revealed that the segment he co-wrote with C. Robert Cargill for VHS 85 titled Dream Kill is a follow-up connected to The Black Phone. And the filmmaker explained that the short takes place 7 years after the feature film and includes Gunther, who is played by Dashiell Derrickson, Scott Derrickson's son, who is the cousin in this universe of Gwen. And he does bring up how he has like these, and that's like the main premise of that segment, is that he's having these dreams and that he can see this, but he's seeing through the eyes of the killer as he's killing. And it's really good. I'm going to get to that on another review, but this is my type of like sequel that I like, or like connecting to like a story that I really love. It's kind of like a companion story too. Like, that's what I've always liked with sequels, when they do that rather than a direct sequel. Like, and it's very rare to find them, but like when they're like companion pieces too. So like, I'm trying to think of one. Like, I mean, I guess this is a really good example. It's like, it's another piece of media, a short film, well, a short segment in another film that connects to, but is not a direct sequel to. Like, it takes place in that same universe. It has a person with similar powers, and they even reference, like, he references Gwen. Like, he says that his cousin, he's like, I have these dreams like my cousin Gwen. And like, so like and then when he said that too, I was like, wait, the dreams, and he can see these, and Gwen, I was like, this has to be connected to the Black Phone. And I love that, like, because it's just like some little hints. One person who does that a lot is Stephen King. He'll have so if you ever read his novel, so it is its own novel, has its own beginning, middle, end story. It's something. But in other stories, like one of my favorites, Insomnia, it takes place in Derry. It references things in it. It talks about, like, it kind of touches on things and the similar themes, but not the same. It's like a drastically different story. But there's other things like in Dreamcatcher, where the kids, or the people who, the grown-ups in it, when they were kids, they grew up in Derry. So it touches on Derry again. And so they're not necessarily, it's not a like, Insomnia is not a sequel to it. Dreamcatcher is not a sequel to it or Insomnia. None of them are sequels to each other or anything like that. They're just connected because the city, this town of Derry, and these people who are inhabiting it, they intersect and cross paths, and they've met each other, they know of each other, they're there, and it's like you can kind of see them as sequels, but not really. It's not really a sequel. It's more of like a companion story too, if that makes any sense. Like, it's its own thing. It makes its own references. And I mean, you could kind of, like, that's what I mean. Like, it's like a companion to it. It's because you could go from reading it to reading Insomnia, and you could still feel, because like when the adults are kids, you get into this flashback of like them being kids in the 50s, then them in the 80s, and then when Insomnia takes place, it's the early 90s, and then we get to see Mike in it, who is a character from it. And he shows up, and so you kind of still get this kind of feeling, and like the library is important in that story too, and he's the librarian, and it like works its way together, and I love that Stephen King does that. And obviously that may be where Scott Derrickson got similar idea to make like this kind of follow-up, like, connection story to his, I mean, maybe not just from him. I mean, like, there's other things that do that as well. I just can't think of it off the top of my head. Anything else is another example. But that to me is what I like. I like those stories where they involve another character from like the first one. Maybe we get to see a little bit more of that. Oh, okay. Another example might be like how U.S. Marshals, I know this is a ridiculous, is a sequel to The Fugitive, but it's not really a sequel because it's about Tommy Lee Jones's character from that film, but he's not the main character. It's Harrison Ford's character who's the main character in the first one, but then you see, it's like, that's what I mean. Those kinds of stories where we get to explore another part of the universe that doesn't have anything to do with that first story. Kill Counter. We have arrived at the kill counter. This is the part of the podcast where we go through the kills and the deaths in the film. I normally don't like to include any kills off screen unless they are integral to the plot, so I will be counting the boys killed by the grabber prior to the start of the film, outside of the main narrative, just because they are important to the story. Throughout the film, we see the grabber haunt the town. He stalks the boys, and when they are alone, he lures them in and kidnaps them. Bruce Yamada, Billy Showalter, Griffin Stagg, Vance Pinball Hopper, and Robin Arellano are all kidnapped one by one and murdered off-screen. That's 5 kills to add to the counter. Max Shaw, the brother of Albert Shaw, aka the Grabber, is obsessed with solving the kidnappings that have been happening around town. He is also oblivious to the fact that his own brother is the perpetrator. Late into the film, when Max is putting the pieces together of where the Grabber could be, he realizes that Finney is in the basement. He goes to try and free him, but gets an axe to his head by his own brother. When Finney finally takes all that the ghosts of the Grabber's previous victims have taught him, he lures the Grabber into a trap. The Grabber falls into the hole Finney dug, and Finney is able to hit him with the phone, which Finney has packed with dirt. He's able to get the phone cord around his neck. Finney strangles and snaps the Grabber's neck. That's all 7 deaths in the black phone, which most of are off screen, but hey, horror films don't always have to have a high body count or gore to be great or amazing. I mean, there's films like, look at Halloween, is not that gory or not that bloody either, and doesn't, I mean, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't really have that high of a body count either, now that I think about it. So, I mean, it's usually when you get further and further into, like, a series because they gotta do more and top what they did last time. That's usually why they add more and more gore, more and more bodies. But, hey, you know what? For this one, I think having, showing 2 kills and, like, not showing the deaths of little kids, it was pretty good for, like a horror film. We don't have to see little kids or kids getting killed in a film to make it good. In June 2022, Joe Hill pitched to Derrickson a wonderful idea for a sequel. Derrickson said he was open to directing if the first film was a success. And in August, after the success of the film, Derrickson and Hill confirmed that they were in discussions with the studio to make a sequel. Derrickson said that the financial success of the Black Phone led to the development of the project. Hill said his inspiration to write a sequel was based on the iconic imagery of the Grabber's mask. In October 2023, so just this past October, the film was officially announced by Universal Pictures with a scheduled release of about June 27th, 2025. So we still got more than a year to get the sequel. And then a month later, it was reported that Hawk, Thames, McGraw, Davies, and Mora would reprise their roles in the sequel. Cargill also will return to, and I guess has returned to co-write the script with Derrickson. In all honesty, when I first heard, when I got done watching the movie the first time, I was like, I'm so glad it's a self-contained, one and done. You can move on to something else, right? And then when people started talking about doing a sequel, I was like, how are you going to do a sequel to this? Because the ending is very, very finite, very, like, there's a definitive, like, ending to this. And, like, if you were to, like, go to do, like, a prequel, I don't think it would work because there wouldn't be, like, a sufficient ending. Like, it would be the villain winning in the end because he would be killing these kids. And so I'm thinking, I mean, obviously Joe Hill, I'm so glad they got Joe Hill back and he's the one who like came up for an idea for the sequel. So he has, he has an idea of where he wants to go with the sequel. So I'm glad about that, and I'm glad it's not just like, I don't know, trying to make like a in between kind of story, like, oh, the grabber actually had another kid like hidden over here, and then I don't know, you know what I mean? Like I'm glad it's like, hopefully that's what the sequel is, like an actual like a smart sequel that like isn't just like, oh well, the grabber wasn't actually dead and they arrested him. I don't know, something like that. Something that might be dumb, where it was like, no, you showed us he died. Like he broke his neck. If it's something where like he comes back like with like something with her dreams or something, kind of like Freddy Krueger-ish. Actually, that might work. That might work a little bit. I mean, maybe I'm coming off of like, just what I've just thinking about this, but like something like that could work honestly for like the story, like maybe like he's able to come back in her like prophetic dreams or something, and maybe he starts getting into like Finn's dreams again, or again into Finn's dreams or something, or I don't know. You could do so much. I don't know if I would call it like the Black Phone 2. I would maybe like, I would give it, see what I like to with sequels is when they give them like their own name. They don't like just do like Halloween 2 or Scream 2. I'm trying to think of like how Army of Darkness is Army of Darkness. It's not just Evil Dead 3, like, or more Evil Dead or something. You know what I mean? Like he gave it another name. Like he's like Army of Darkness, and yes, that for me made it seem like they weren't connected. But like I grew up and I learned more about it, and I learned, oh, this is the third part. I like that. I like when it's like or even if you were to do like you give it a name and then like the Black Phone 2, so that people know, like you give it its own title and then like the Black Phone 2 or something. I don't know. I think calling it the Black Phone again would be kind of weird, because like it's very specific to this film why there's the Black Phone, why it's specifically the Black Phone. Like it's very specific. Like I don't know where else you would put a Black Phone in this, unless there is another Black Phone. You know what I mean? Like, and like, oh God, see, now I'm just coming up with ideas. Maybe like that's like their phone or something. Like they like their dad like gets a new phone or whatever, but the phone is a Black Phone, and they start getting calls from the grabber and stuff. Like it could be something weird like that. Like see, I'm building up these ideas in my head, and I'm probably gonna be let down, or maybe not. I don't know. Derrickson is like I said, because like with Sinister, it's like don't know about that. But then like everything else, it's like, okay, well, I do like those other films. So we'll have to just wait and see. I mean, like it's over a year. We'll probably get some more news about it towards the end of the year, because they'll probably start doing production closer to the end of the year, like beginning. Well, if it's going to come out in June, so they'll probably start like marketing it in like April. Well, they usually try and do horror films a little bit ahead, because like Terrifier, we've been getting it since prior to December, and it's not supposed to come out till December this year, so we might get some stuff like towards the end of this year. Maybe a little bit more about like the idea of it, or like maybe like a poster or something, and then probably towards through the beginning of next year, we'll probably get some more like some set photos and stuff, and we'll start getting some more promotional stuff going into, because that sounds like for Universal that's going to be since it's June of 2025, that sounds like it's going to be one of their bigger, felt like May, June, like blockbusters that they know people are going to go see. So yeah. Before we get into the film, we touched briefly on Stephen King's son, Joe Hill, on the first Creepshow episode. He made his film debut as a child in the wraparound story, and with The Master of Horror as your father, he went on to write his own stories. Honestly, I really commend him for building his career without using his last name. I really want to check out his short stories because this was such a great and unique story that it really makes me want to go read like Horns was his story. The Fireman I heard is really good. Just like his collection of like short stories, they like from what I'm reading of like the little like synopsis of some of them, I'm like, those sound really interesting. I'm like, how do you like? I know how I come up with like original stories, right? But when I hear other people coming up with like their own original, I'm like, how did you come up with that? Like, I know how I came up with mine, but how did you come up with yours? It's very interesting. I love hearing like the ideas behind some of these stories sometimes, because like it's very, very interesting to hear like how you came up with a story. The Black Phone, though, as a film, this film, amazing. Derrickson's direction is great. The design of the mask was so creepy, and I think it stands so iconic. I think it's going to be iconic for years of like this like person in this mask and his performance, like his with the hands, because you know you can only do so much with like a mask. Even if the mask was covering your face, there's only so much you can do like to give emotion through the mask, right? And like part of the mask is just partial, where it's just hit like from his I think like his nose down, or even above his nose down, and like there's so much range that you could like. He uses his hands a lot too to give you this kind of like idea. Like, I mean, he's a magician, so obviously he's used his hands a lot. So, and I think that goes to like Ethan Hawke, and I'm just going to get into Ethan Hawke right now as the grabber. He's intimidating, sinister, and menacing. He plays it so well, like from pretending to need help to learn his victims to chasing down Finney as he tries to escape, and that's just such a like nerve-wracking scene. And another standout, like I talked about earlier, Madeline McGraw, and she really steals the show. Honestly, she really knocks it out of the park. She is the scene stealer in every scene she's in with and it kind of, I mean, she is like the standout performance. It's like she took this character, she was like, I'm gonna make it all I can, and it kind of sucks for everyone else because it's like, dang, she gives such a good performance, like it just elevates everyone else, and just like they both do such a great job. Ethan Hawke, amazing. I love it. Like, I love that he decided to, give this character this unique, like tone where it's not overtly like despicable, but it's just like it's simmering, and then as he gets more and more upset and violent, it becomes more and more menacing. And as a magician, you do use your hands a lot, so that's where going back to like him using his hands and like performance and performative, and that works perfectly for this. And one other thing is, like, I love just the look of like the dreams, the analog look of like this film, which is like you can kind of see came from Sinister, and he took that kind of filmy look and kind of analog-y-ish look, and he made the dreams look like that, and it looks great, amazing. And the film is thrilling, suspenseful, terrifying. The Grabber I would include like on the list of like new like horror like icons, someone like the Babadook or Art the Clown. And there's a part where Finney, he's able to get out and he's running for freedom, but the Grabber, who was asleep, sitting in his kitchen, and the dog wakes him, he's able to catch Finney and bring him back down to the basement. But it's just such a like tense, like you're just so like you felt this relief of like emotion, like him getting away, but then he gets him and he brings him back in, It's just such a letdown, so like heartbreaking, and you're just like, oh my god, like he was this close to freedom. And it's like, that to me is a horror movie unto itself. Like, you being trapped for so long, you're almost there to freedom, and you're just brought back down into that basement, and it's just like, you were almost there. You're almost there, and it's horrible. Another aspect that I really like I was talking about earlier, like the dreams that Gwen has, and trying to point the police in the right direction to help find her brother, but then like that kind of like, do I go along with these dreams that my dad has literally beaten me about, because like it just reminds him too much of like the mom and how she passed away, but this could help her find her brother, and that's like another part that really like is tense, and it's that build up to the very end when the cops go to the house that Gwen has been dreaming of, and it's empty, completely empty, and you're like, what? Like, did that part like with Finney take place in the past? Like, where is everyone? And it turns out she was dreaming of one of the right houses. It turns out like that house, that empty one, that's where the grabber, because he also owned that house, it's where he would bury the bodies, in the basement. So he lives across the street, and that's where he keeps the living boys. But then when he kills them, he goes across and buries them. It's crazy. It's like, it's so like heart racing, and you're like there with her, like almost like you're kind of relieved at first, and then you're let down. Then you realize like she's looking in the wrong. Literally, if she just looks the other way, she'd find the house that is her brother's. Honestly, I would consider this a modern classic, and hopefully the sequel is able to live up to this one, and also expands on the world, like what they did with VHS 85, that short segment. That expanded enough to be like, whoa, you could have kind of ended it there, but I just don't want to see the same story over and over again. This time Gwen gets kidnapped or something. Like, that just won't be interesting. You got to kind of evolve the story along. Give us something new. Give us something different. I truly recommend this film to any fan of horror. Or if you like Stephen King kind of esque stories. I mean, it's Joe Hill. This one is one you need to watch and add to your physical media collection. I highly promote you owning your media in a physical copy, be it VHS, I know these are older, but VHS, Laserdisc, or DVDs, Blu-ray, any type of physical media, because you never know when you're not going to be able to watch that ever again. I give The Black Phone a solid 4 out of 5 stars. Yes, I'm going to start giving out ratings for films. I really didn't like to in the past, because I don't feel like films really need a quantifier, but I really like the 5-star model. I think it really sums up how I truly feel about these films. So going forward, you'll get like solid, like, okay, it's going to be this out of 5 stars. So right off the bat, we got a 4 out of 5. This one is so good. If you haven't seen it, don't know why you're listening to this, go watch it now. If you have seen it, what did you think? This is right, like, this is such a great film. This is so good. I loved just everything about it. Like, they got the like period right, and like the way that it looks and it feels, you know, it feels very 70s, and you know, it's very like on the end of your seat, waiting to see what's gonna happen, and the performances are great. It was great overall. Can't wait to see what the sequel is gonna be about. But yeah, that would be my final thoughts. Would you consider the grabber a horror icon? Were you on the edge of your seat during the film? Have you had any prophetic psychic dreams? You should probably get that checked out. We want to thank you all for listening, and if you like what you hear, please subscribe to get every new episode downloaded. Do you have any personal or fictional paranormal, supernatural, or unexplainable stories? We'd love to read them on the podcast. Please send your stories, recommendations, or anything else to horrorboxpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to show more support, you can follow our socials on Instagram, Threads, or TikTok at horrorboxpodcast. Also, you can buy me a coffee at coffee.com/horrorboxpodcast. It really helps out. We'll see you next time and hear what comes out from the horror box.
Jesus, what the fuck? I mean, what the fuck? I ask you for help when you give me these clues that don't mean anything. And now this morning I wake up without any dream at all? Seriously, what the hell is wrong with you?